Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Today we are going to look into the first lesson of the Standard 12th English core course from Flamingo, and the name of the lesson is The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Now I have divided this lesson into two parts since there are a lot of explanations. So let us first look at the author. Now, Alphonse Daudet was a French novelist and a short story writer. Daudet enlisted in the army, but he was devastated when France lost in the battle, and in the battle that I'm talking about is the Franco-Prussian War. So this Franco-Prussian War had a profound effect on his writing, and in this story, the last lesson, the Franco-Prussian War is central to this lesson. So it is set in the days of the Franco-Prussian War, which took place in 1870-71, in which France was defeated by Prussia led by Bismarck. So Prussia then consisted of what now are the nations of Germany, Poland and parts of Austria. Okay, so in this story, the French were defeated by the so called Germans, and the French districts of Alsace and Lorraine have passed into Prussian hands. This story is narrated by a French boy named Franz, who does not like to study French and also has a dislike for his teacher, Mr. M. Hamel, who was very strict. But everything changes for Franz one particular day when he goes to school and finds out the reality. So let us see what happens. Now, before we go into the story, let us take a look at the geographic locations of France and Prussia. So, this red area, which has been marked in the map, it shows the districts of Alsace and Lorraine, which belonged to France and which was captured by Prussia, the present German state. So you can see France and Germany, they are neighboring countries, and Germans, they attacked France and took away the territories of Alsace and Lorraine. So let us take a look at the story. One morning, Franz was very late for school. As he says, I started for school very late that morning and was in great dread of a scolding, especially because M. Hamel had said that he would question us on participles. So, Mr. Hamel, the French teacher, he had given them some task. He had asked them to learn the lesson on participles, and obviously, Franz did not know the first word about them. So, for a moment, I thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. So, since Franz did not prepare his lesson, what did he want to do? He thought of spending the day out of doors. So, he would enjoy the birds chirping at the edge of the woods or in the open field back in the sawmill the Prussian soldiers were drilling. So he would simply while away his time looking at the beauty of nature or looking at the Prussian soldiers who had already overtaken the districts of Alsace and Lorraine, and they were stationed there and they were practicing. It was all much more tempting than the rule for participles for Franz. Franz thought that spending the day enjoying the birds and the Prussian soldiers drilling would would be much more delightful than learning the rules of participles. However, I had the strength to resist and hurried off to school. So Franz did not do as he thought and he ran off to school. So while crossing the town hall, Franz noticed a crowd in front of the bulletin board. So for the last 2 years, all our bad news had come from there. The lost battles, the drafts, the orders of the commanding officer, and I thought to myself without stopping, what can be the matter now? So while Franz was, walking, rather running towards his school, on the way he saw that people had gathered in front of the bulletin board at the town hall. So a town hall is basically, it's sort of a building which houses the governing body of any state or any city. Okay, and over there all the official notices are put up. So people were reading, they were crowded in front of the bulletin board, and he saw that they were reading something very eagerly. So Franz hurried by fast to reach school. He did not wait there to find out what was happening. And as he hurried by as fast as he could, the blacksmith Vactor, who was there with his apprentice reading the bulletin, called after Franz. And what did he say? He said, "Don't go so fast, bub. You will get to school in plenty of time." So the blacksmith who was there at the bulletin board, who was reading the news that had been put up at the bulletin board, asked Franz to go slowly. So Franz reached school, and upon reaching school, also he saw that the school atmosphere was very unusual. It did not appear same as it used to appear every day. It appeared very silent and very still. So I am reading from the text. Just listen. Usually, when school began, there was a great bustle which could be heard out in the street. The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison, very loud, with our hands over our ears to understand better, and the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table. So, this description was a description of the school on a general day, and the school had a lot of noise. It had the noise of the opening and closing of desks, the lessons being repeated together, and the entire commotion could be heard even while walking on the street. But that day, when Franz reached school, it was all so still. I had counted on the commotion to get to my desk without being seen, but of course, that day everything had to be as quiet as Sunday morning. Through the window, I saw my classmates already seated in their places, and Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler under his arm. I had to open the door and go in before everybody. You can imagine how I blushed and how frightened I was. Children, definitely, when you also get late to come to school, and when everyone sits in silence and the class teacher is already present in the class, it's almost very shameful to enter the class at such a late hour. But still, we do enter taking a lot of risks. So, Franz also felt the same. He also entered the classroom. He had thought that he would take, advantage of the noise and the commotion and the, mm, the distraction. He would rather use that to his own advantage to slip into the class without being noticed. But everything was very different on that particular day. Especially, he was afraid of M. Hamel and his ruler. That is why he hesitated to come inside the classroom. But anyway, he did so. But nothing happened. M. Hamel saw me and said very kindly, "Go to your place quickly, little Franz. We were beginning without you." So I jumped over the bench and sat down at my desk. Not till then, when I had got a little over my fright, did I see that our teacher had on a beautiful green coat, his frilled shirt, and the little black silk cap all embroidered, that he never wore except on inspection and prize days. So Hamel was dressed in his best attire, which he only wore on special occasions, and even he did not scold Franz for being late to class. But the thing that surprised Franz the most, what was that? And I am quoting, "On the back benches that were always empty, the village people sitting quietly like ourselves. Old Hauser, with his three-cornered hat, the former mayor, the former postmaster, and several others besides. Everybody looked sad, and Hauser had brought an old primer, thumbed at the edges, and he held it open on his knees with his great spectacles lying across the pages." So, old Hauser, what is a primer? Old Hauser had a primer. So, the primer is an elementary standard, an elementary level book which serves as an introduction to some subject. Okay, so over here there were two very unusual things that were happening. First, M. Hamel was very calm, he was very kind, he did not scold Franz for being late, and he was very well dressed on that particular day. And the second thing was the back benches of the classroom. It was occupied by the village elders, the elders of that particular place. So while Franz was wondering what the matter was, Hamel informed that it was his last day at school, and I quote, M. Hamel mounted his chair and, in the same grave and gentle tone which he had used to me, said, "My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive." So, it was their last lesson. The Prussians had overtaken France, and now they had also overtaken their language. French would no longer be taught to them from the next day, and that is why it was their last lesson in French, M. Hamel's last lesson in that school. The announcement made by Hamel cleared a lot of doubts in Franz's mind. So that is why Franz could figure out the crowd in front of the bulletin board in front of the town hall. Okay, the best attire in which Hamel was dressed, why the village elders were sitting at the back benches, everything soon fell into place, and Franz could figure out the reason behind all this happenings. So Franz was shocked to hear the news, and I quote, "What a thunderclap those words were to me. Oh, the wretches, that was what they had put up at the town hall. And to everyone's sadness, Franz was unable to either read or write French. Okay, and he was extremely guilty for not learning his lessons, and he felt very and he repented. He felt very sorry. He repented for his mistake. Let me quote a few lines. My last French lesson. Why, I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there then. Oh, how sorry I was for not learning my lessons. So, Franz was very unhappy at the announcement that Hamel had just made. And while all these things were going on in the mind of Franz, he suddenly heard his name being called and asking him to recite the lesson of participles. So Franz felt very nervous. So what did he do? And I quote, but I got mixed up on the first words and stood there, looking onto my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. So Franz, he fumbled a lot. He got mixed up with his participles. He did not understand what to say, and he stood there silently without daring to look up at Hamel. But Hamel, instead of being the usual cranky, strict master, did not scold him that day. Rather, he started explaining the reason behind Franz's inability to recite the lesson. And Hamel explained that it was the general tendency of people to think that they had plenty of time. Okay? See, let me quote Hamel's words. Every day we have said to ourselves, bah, I have plenty of time, I will learn it tomorrow. And now you see where we have come out. And that's the great trouble with Alsace. She puts off learning till tomorrow. Now, those fellows out there will have the right to say to you, how is it you pretend to be Frenchmen and you can neither speak nor write your own language? But you are not the worse, poor little Franz. We are all a great deal to reproach ourselves with. So, over here, Hamel gets emotional, Hamel gets sentimental, and he says that the people of Alsace, they put off their work to another day. They keep on postponing their work. They don't do it on time. And by doing this, today they have reached at such a level, at a certain point, that they will lose their own language. They are about to lose their own language because from the very next day, French would not be taught to them and it would be all German. So that is why Hamel gets sentimental over here and he questions that who is to blame for the present state of affairs? Who are to be blamed for France not learning their lessons? Of course, it is both the teachers and the parents who are to be blamed. And I quote Hamel's words. Your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They preferred to put you to work on a farm or at the mills so as to have a little more money. And I have been to blame also. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? So, Hamel points out, rather, Hamel blames the parents for not letting their children take studies very seriously, and he also blames himself that even apart from studies, he has also sent Franz to do to run various errands for him at the cost of studying, at the cost of his lessons. So it is a very, very sad situation at the moment.